Hello, Christian Livingstone here, and we've got a new project, or I've got a new project, and it of course involves this electric hand cycle, but more specifically it involves the hub motor that drives this baby, and you know, that makes it more relevant to a wider audience because these hub motors can be used on any bicycle, and you know, so it's not just about electric hand cycles, trikes, and all this crazy stuff. As much as I enjoy it, like to talk about it, it's going to generalize to a wider population, I think, because these hub motors have been in use for quite a while now, and people are starting to catch on that, you know, they're pretty cool, and you know, they can get you around pretty quick for very little once you get them in, and you know, as the economy gets worse, and you know, the state and the federal states, you know, keep printing up fiat currency, it causes prices of things to go up, especially like gasoline, so people may be making those choices to use these more. And when I designed and built this electric hand cycle, I had a choice to make about which kind of hub motor to choose, and there's primarily two out there, and one is the geared hub, and the other one is referred to as direct drive. Now, I chose the geared hub because the geared hub doesn't have any, when you're freewheeling, when you're not using the electrics, it doesn't create any drag. So, you know, when I'm using the hand cranks, I don't want any extra drag, and you know, if you're using the electrics a lot, maybe you don't care about that. You know, if you're leg cranking, and a little drag may not be that big a deal, but since I use this up top, not all the time, I rely on the electrics mostly, but you know, when I am hand cranking and, you know, getting strong up top, I don't want any added drag. So I chose the Planetary geared hub design for that reason, and there's a couple other good reasons to choose those, in that the Planetary gear drive does have a 5-to-1 ratio, so you know, the motor can spin quicker and get you up to speed faster, and that means faster takeoffs. The direct drive ones, it's just the magnets always engaged, and you got to get the motor and the wheel speed up to speed, and usually that, I believe, involves having some initial pedaling or cranking to get the thing going. So this thing has quicker takeoffs, and that's what I like. You know, I don't like to start off slow. You know, if you need to get out of the way of a car or a traffic situation, I don't want to be slow about that. So I chose the gear-driven, or the Planetary gear style, and but the one drawback of the geared hubs is that, you know, it has moving parts. And here we are with the parts. This is that Planetary gear set. This is actually the clutch mechanism too. You don't have to buy the whole clutch mechanism. You can just buy these individual gears for, I don't know, 18 or 20 bucks a piece. That's really the best way to go, I think. I needlessly bought this whole clutch set with all the gears on it because that's all I could source at the time, and I soon found out that you can buy these gears individually. So I chose the geared hub, and but one of the drawbacks is that they will require maintenance, and I believe I've come to that place. It's been about 2 years since I've been riding this, and I've undoubtedly put over 1,000 miles a year, probably more. And you know, I drive a truck too, you know, when it's called for, in the snow and stuff. But I do most of my commuting and shopping right out of this thing. I just roll right through the supermarkets and the checkouts, and so it's a lot of fun, and people seem to like it too. So it's come to that place where I believe it needs that maintenance, and we're going to discover together what that means, because I've only had the symptoms that it's time you know, telltale signs over, I don't know, 6, 8 months, 10 months. At first there was a little clanging, the gears weren't meshing quite. That was a little unsettling when I first started hearing it, but no big deal. But now it's come to the place where, you know, when I take off, it's like it's a clutch slipping. It's and then it finally gets up to speed. So there's a little gap in its direct torque takeoff. So, you know, that's what I decided is, you know, making it time to get it handled. And I've got all the parts. The parts aren't terribly expensive. They're out there. I get those kind of parts from a place called E-Bikes San Francisco, or SF E-Bikes, E-Bikes SF. If you want to do a web search, you'll find it. San Francisco E-Bikes. They've got, you know, just the kind of things that it's going to take. And it doesn't take much. So we're going to discover that together. We're going to take this off, or I'm going to take it off. We will discover it together. What the problem is, you know, after noticing the symptoms over time, we're going to see what that translates into as far as those gears go. Here we are about to take the cover off this hub. One thing or two things I'll mention, maybe three things, is that these screws, I've been told or read on the forums that you got to be careful not to strip them out. And so, you know, I was mindful of that, and I picked the very best Phillips head screwdriver I had for these machine head screws, and I set them with a hammer. I tapped on the hammer, of course not on this glass table, you know, I'm just displaying it here, but that way it sets the screwdriver real well and breaks it free. And they were snug, but I don't think there was any real danger if you use the right screwdriver of stripping those out, because that's something you definitely wouldn't want to get hung up on, is, you know, one or more of these things stripped out and you're stuck and wondering what to do next. But other than that, I found a one of these spokes. Yeah, there it is. One of these spokes was broken, and you know, with a project like the electric hand cycle, you're going to have some extra spare parts in that developmental process, and or one-off process. And sure enough, I had some extra spokes, so I'll try to under and over that as best I can. And because these gears are not they're not steel gears, they're a composite material like plastic and fiberglass, some kind of composite, and they've held up for a couple of years, and that's pretty good. And but we're going to also do an upgrade. There's a guy named Lion, and he's a real bright guy. He develops his own controllers for these hub motors under his same name, Lion, L-Y-E-N, and he's in the San Francisco Bay Area too. And he makes another product for those gears. These 3 Planetary gears, he makes one steel gear, stainless steel gear, and we're going to install one of those, so it'll hopefully cause the other gears to not take so much stress and maybe last a little longer. So we'll get into that. We'll get into not only refurbishing the Planetary gear system on the BMC electric bike hub, but we'll actually upgrade it. And I don't think I've seen anybody doing a video on that. And so let's get to it. And as you can see, this is kind of a plastic composite stuff, and we're going to undoubtedly find that these are worn down, and you know, it probably hits the high spots on some of these gears, and that gets you going, but on the takeoffs it probably, you know, hits those low spots until it hits a high spot. So that's what I'm expecting to find, something that shows a lot of wear on these. But like I said, we're going to do one other thing. We're going to upgrade, and this is that stainless steel gear. We're going to put one in the place of one of these. We'll take two of these off and put it on the old hub and put this third new upgrade. And theoretically, or what I've seen on the forums, the thinking on this is that it relieves the stress on these other gears, and it hopefully won't wear out as quickly. And but this also will add a little noise to the mechanism, and you know, these are not quite as silent as the direct drive hubs, because there's no moving parts, it's just magnetism going round and round. But these actually have a hub like a bell down below, you see, and so there is a little perceptible noise from this. Maybe not enough to wake every dog, but you know, they can hear you coming sometimes. But it's also good, that kind of lets people know that, you know, because you don't want to run up on people, you know, in super silent mode. I kind of like that there's a little bit of noise from this, not much. But this will increase it some. And I've got two of these, and as you can see, holes all around it. I drilled those out because, you know, this was solid, it was heavy, and on the forums, some guys said, oh, you know, you shouldn't just put one, you should put three of them around there. That way it'll be balanced and blah, 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 balance. But the guy lying says, no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to put three on there. It'd be super noisy. It only needs one to take off that stress somewhat. And, you know, the thing about this is that this is the freewheeling. This does spin along with the wheel to the same revolution and speed as the wheel until that motor, the center gear, which we'll see will protrude into this center. When that engages and starts spinning, then these don't spin with the wheel. They have a little bit more fixed position, and then the wheels spin that 5 times faster. So it's not an issue of balance when the electrics are engaged. And even going around at the speed of the rim, that's not very fast. And so this is right in the center, so you know, it's not going to get out of balance. If it was way out on the end, and maybe a little, it would be out of balance, but not towards the center. But I did. Anyway, I drilled this out just to, it was needless. It didn't have to be that full solid mass. It was heavy. It's still a little weighty. And sure enough, I gave it a tap up top here on the opposite side, and it dropped out the cover, no problem. So I didn't even need the puller. And I've got some better ball bearings, I think. These are precision bearings, and I had these from the project that I did the handles for the hand crank. Initially I used some bicycle pedals, and I just sleeved them out, and they had loose cup ball bearings, cage ball bearings, I forget. I used it for about a year that way, and they were fine. But you know, when I was riding with the electrics, not hand cranking, the little vibration up top there in those loose cup ball bearings, you know, it was a little noisy, needless, and you know, I fitted a camera up top there, and I didn't want that extra noise. So away they went. I got some of these cheap but good skateboard ball bearings, and they happen to be the same size as these, and so I'll put these in here too. Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, so that's what we'll do. We'll dig into this here next. And as you can see, there's another hub down below there, and that's a brand new hub, and I've really set that aside for the other rear wheel. And on a later project, I hopefully will energize that wheel too. So this will ultimately be a dual rear wheel drive trike, and I don't think I've seen one like that before. I don't think anybody's done it. I know somebody's done it with a tadpole trike, 2 driven front wheels that also steer. you know, he was having a little trouble with spokes breaking and stuff, but in the back, not so much, because they're not turning, and those stressing factors won't come into play. And, apparently, there'll be no contention between the two wheels, rear driven, because there's no axle, and when you're turning it doesn't cause a problem. So that'll be a fun project. I got it sandwiched in between me here, but I'm not going to try to hold the shaft anymore, or the axle. I'll just turn this baby, and you can see, there it is, it just popped out. And I'm continuing to turn on the puller, just so you can see that's the action. It didn't take much. I probably could have tapped it out with the hammer the whole way, but that was the more controlled and cautious method, and sure enough, it's out. But in the meanwhile, that does act as a backup. If I crack open this hub here and find, oh, it's, you know, it's ruined, or, you know, it's irreparable, I've got a backup solution, some redundancy. So that's one thing I recommend. I mean, God gave us, you know, 2 arms, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, a few other things, but so redundancy is a good thing, and that's what I've got. And but I don't anticipate any trouble. These gears, I think, are the only thing. But I do have the hub, or the clutch here too. So if that thing is you know, anything I can detect as a flaw, but it's not. It's just spins. Here we are, the unit's out, and surprising findings. The gears are fine. They're like brand new, even after 2 years worth of wear. You know, I'm not that abusive on that baby, but the more surprising thing was that it's the clutch mechanism. There's brakes. There's 4 brakes that I can tell right off the bat. You can undoubtedly see them now if it focuses in, but they're there. So, oh, the whole thing's got to come off the line there, and I'll have to chop off the ends there and splice back on those connectors. But if that's what we got to do, we got to do. And so it was, I guess, a good thing that I did buy this whole assembly, and it'll be nice to know that, you know, that can fail before even the gears. So, yeah, that's a nice thing to know. But I'll go ahead and still put on the new upgraded single gear. I'll fit it in there with some of the others. And another reason for not wanting to put this clutch on is that, you know, the wire comes out of the axle, and you know, if you want to put this whole clutch mechanism on, you got to cut the wire connectors and then refit them on there. But if you're just going to pluck off these gears, you don't have to. You know, you can just pull this out, or just leave it right in the hub, I believe, and just replace them, little circlips, and that's it. So that's where we're heading. We're heading down below here. We're going to take off the wheel. We're going to pop open that hub and just see what we got. And I'm guessing that we'll just replace a couple of these, add one of these, and we'll be good to go again. Here we are getting ready to take off the clutch assembly, and to my surprise, I thought I might have to take off the whole motor down line on the wiring cable, because any of the videos I've seen on these BMC motors, the wiring comes off of this side, off of the clutch side, and you know, it shows them on the, I guess they're the older models, having to cut the wiring to get this off, because the wiring comes out here. But I guess this is a new enough unit, the design has been changed so that the wiring comes off on this side, and that makes it ultra easy to replace this whole assembly. And as you can see, I'll just turn it with hand strength. I can see it right on the shaft. It's slowly coming off. off. And that's a big plus, that no wiring has to be cut in order to get these later versions. Now this is called the V2T, and that just means version 2 torque. T for torque, version 2. They're on version 3s and maybe even 4s, but this model, I guess, had the upgraded one-piece clutch mechanism, and all these gears and this newest clutch will work on earlier versions and the most recent, and of course mine as well. So that's nice that all these parts generalize, you know, forwards and backwards, and so yeah. But it's a little surprising if this is the new mechanism. So is this that this one failed the way it did? But it's nice to know that it can just come off the back end. There's no wiring coming out of that side. I can slap another one on there, or you can slap. Anybody can repair these things a little quicker and easier than thought, at least than I thought, because like I said, the older videos or any videos out there that I've noticed show a cable coming off this side. So, you know, I had to just kind of go back and look and say, yeah, you know, I was not hallucinating. You know, there is no cable on this side here, but everywhere else it seems to be. But that's a good thing, I think. So we'll just continue on. Okay, after taking this clutch mechanism out, I'm just starting to question even if there's anything wrong with the clutch. It spins forward. It's a one-way clutch. It just goes around but won't go back. So I'm thinking maybe this seal back here is just broken, and it really has no dramatic effect on the function. It seems to function just like the newer one. You know, I spin it one way, not the other, and you know, I'm sure it's just some caged bearings in there, not super sealed, but yeah, it could be that you know, I was just getting a little needlessly worried that I was spinning out. You know, it seemed like it, but it could have been I just have so much torque. I could have been hitting patches of you know, grass, or shifting my weight over to the non-driven wheel, and I was actually you know, spinning out on the wheel without even realizing it, just hearing it sounding like it was spinning out, but it actually was spinning out. I thought maybe the motor was spinning inside because this clutch mechanism, but see, that's all it is. Here we are with that assembly completed as far as placing that aftermarket stainless or steel gear on the Planetary clutch mechanism. Here it is, and one thing I think is worth paying attention to if you're going to install one of these, in that it's different than the factory ones, since there's one built-in flange on one side. See there in the light, you can catch it, that underside there. That's got a little lip or a flange on one side, and you want to make sure that's on the right side, or this thing could just slip out. It's different from these factory ones. These factory ones have you know, a plate sandwiched on both sides with these 3 rivets, so you know, even though it looks like they're all going this way, you could probably put them either way. It doesn't matter. But on this, you will. And you'll want that placed just like this, with that underside going in this direction. And that means that this is the leading edge right here. This is how it engages on the hub itself. So there's some exertion of force in this direction, and the flange is holding it against the bearing, and the bearing is being held by that snap ring. So you know, that's how it goes. You wouldn't want it going this way, or it could just slip right off, and that wouldn't be a good thing. And you may notice that This is a beefier gear here. It's a little fatter, a little wider, and you know, when I first put it on there, I thought, oh, you know, I don't like the looks of that, but it took me about 10 or 12 seconds to ask myself, you know, is this the leading edge or is this the leading edge? And of course, this is the leading edge, and they're both on that same plane there. So if these were the leading edges, this one sits up a little taller on this side, but not on this side. After the bearings, and there's a little washer underneath this too, and it hits it dead on with that bearing. The bearing is the same on these two, the same exact tolerances, and with that washer, it doesn't matter how far this gear hangs out in this direction. Over here, this is the leading edge, and so is this, and they hit in the same spots. So you know, I'm comfortable with that. And sure enough, we're getting ready to go back on with this clutch assembly, and it was a little snug getting started, but you don't need a press or anything like that. I used a little emery cloth on the shaft fairly lightly, and I found a piece of tubing that approximates the inner sleeve here, and I just tapped it with the hammer a couple of times, and boom, it was on. So that's what I recommend, finding a piece of tubing or pipe that approximates the inner sleeve here of that bearing. You don't want to be hammering on the outside of this thing and knocking it on that way. Get something that'll drive it right on over that axle. And here's a quick look at that hub housing itself. The gears inside, lubed up, nothing too heavy. I think that'll be enough. Maybe I'll add just a touch more. I was able to lace up that one spoke too, and you know, I had to bend it and weave it around, but yeah, no problem. Okay, and there it is, about to go back into the hub. It spins free, it spins nice, it's got that new steel gear in there, and it's not hanging up, and it's staying in place. Yeah, no, I'm liking it. And still, I think it was kind of needless for me to go in and do this, but I already had these parts, so you know, it didn't cost me anything out of pocket beyond what I'd already spent quite some time ago. And I still have this as a backup. I think this is perfectly good. I was a little concerned about those brakes and the seal, but functionally I don't think it harms anything. Some of those pieces fell off. Maybe that would be a bad thing. I don't know if I can get another seal like this from a Tractor Supply, maybe, I don't know, but I still consider this perfectly good. But we're sticking with our plan. We've upgraded this Planetary assembly, and we've satisfied my curiosity if you know, any of those little quirks that I heard over the years or months you know, meant anything, and apparently not. Apparently everything was fine, and I went in there and I learned some things, especially about this clutch assembly. It's a good thing that it's designed the way it is on this particular model, that you can just take it off without having to cut wires. So yeah, no, I'm happy. The cover seemed to sandwich back down there pretty nicely. I used a little bit of the ultra gray gasket sealer to place in there. Real thin layer, nothing too sloppy or heavy. And I'll get these holes lined up and seal it up. It seemed to be a problem at the time. I kind of took a mental note of it, and it probably would have been better had I stopped at that time and taken that gear out before I fully installed it, and you know, put a flap disc on my angle grinder and ground it down a millimeter or two just to get it right back exactly like the factory ones were, which have a little more space in between there. And so I'm going to go back in here and see if there are any telltale signs of that wider gear, that upgraded gear, maybe touching or rubbing at certain portions when there's a lot of torque or force pushing against it. You know, it's going round and spinning, and the other ones are equally subject to those forces. So, you know, I figured, well, it keeps it all the same, and but at times one of those three corners of the planetary gears may get a little more indentation or depression from whatever forces are going on in there. So if everything isn't, you know, perfectly running equally, it could rub and tap up against that bell housing. So I can't detect it right now when it's running free like this, and you'll hear it. And the motor, I've got the frame lifted up. And that's what it sounded like before with just the factory gears. It, you know, it spins and it has some noise. When you're on the ground, it doesn't quite get up to that speed that quick. So, you know, it may not sound that noisy, you know, when you're rolling down the road. But I'm going to open this baby up again anyway, and just see, for my benefit and for yours too, you know, because I'm kind of recommending that gear going into these things, and you know, I still will, and I'm going to leave it in regardless of what I find in there, because what I'll do is I'll just shave a millimeter or two off it, get it right down to the same width as the factory ones, and call it good, because it will be. Everything comes off a lot faster the second time, and it's just one of the nice things about the fact that this can come off without having to cut wires. You're not apprehensive about doing it. You know, at the drop of a hat, you can have this baby open and investigate this very quickly. So yeah, I just am continuing to enjoy this. This is a beefier gear, and you know, the tolerance is you know, slightly problematic on this side. Now, you know, again, there's a couple of ways to deal with it: a washer, or knocking off a little bit of the gear itself. I might do both, but that's something to be aware of, that these babies can rub underneath there too. And you know, I've only had it going with that gear for about 1 day now, and you know, I like the gear, and I think it will help strengthen this whole drivetrain, but I think it's going to call for some refinements, and you know, if it was manufactured a little narrower on both sides, much like these, you know, we wouldn't even be talking. But undoubtedly it was made a little beefier to get more of that surface contact, and you know, there's a design elegance in that, and it does, it strengthens, but we're going to have to refine it a little bit. And that's what this whole you know, electric bike industry is going through. They're going through these refinements, and people like to do modifications to what's out there. I certainly do with computers, and some of my YouTube videos. If you look on the channel, you'll see you know, a lot of modifications to different things. So this is one of them. This is something that everybody's going through, and that's one to look for right there. Those two grooves. It's groovy, baby, but it's really not. So let's see. I thought I noticed it was right towards the corner. So maybe I'll take a hair more off. I don't know. I'm still looking at some washers, see if I got anything that is real close to that, but just a little heavier. That's a little thinny. Okay. Okay, and here is the Planetary gear, the upgraded one. I've taken off a little bit on that side that goes up against that Planetary gear set, and I think that's enough. I think it'll be fine, and you know, it might have been starting up here about 1 millimeter and working its way down to maybe 1.5 millimeters, and that's plenty. I'm liking it. I've used that angle grinder with the flap disc on it. I'll probably follow up and use the orbital sander to give it a more finished look, but yeah, that's it. You just take a little off, and you know, that's one of the things I think if you're going to use one of these, it calls for. Okay, that settles it. The old washer's going back on, because the one that I wanted to replace was just anything thicker than this factory one won't allow that snap ring to go on. So I'm going to just stick with the original washer, and you can see these bright spots here. I've just knocked off a little bit of the surface on both of the travel areas where that goes round and round. So between knocking off the corners on the gear and taking off a little bit right here where actually is on this side, but potentially it could be over here. The slightest bit of contact can translate into you know, an amplified sound. So we don't want that. I don't want that, and we're not going to have it, because I think we've dealt with it by those two measures. We tried to use the washer, but like I said, that tolerance is you know, it's tight, and it doesn't allow for a little bit heavier washer to set this gear up even in the slightest amount. So you know, we're dealing with it, and we're dealing with it in this way, and take it off. So I'll put it on, and then we'll spin it around. Okay, the Planetary gears are in alignment, and here is that aftermarket upgraded steel gear that we've been kind of dinking around with. I was it was touching very slightly here, and so we removed a little bit of the surface metal on that spot, but also on the gear itself. And you know, these gears, they don't wobble like the factory gears. The factory gears have some slop in them, and you'd think that they would touch down on these tolerances more than that aftermarket gear, but they don't. They're just thinner gears, they're sloppier, and they seem to be quite happy about it, and they're not a problem. But this one was initially a problem. I had it installed just for the one day, and I thought, you know, it's louder than these composite gears, you know, because it is steel, and but there is a break-in period, and I thought, well, you know, how long is that break-in period? But it could be that break-in period would never end if we didn't give this that attention, because even those slight scuff marks, you know, were not something that was really a good thing to have, and they might have never gone away. But you know, I don't think there was any real hazard to them. You know, it was just a noise factor, a slight added noise factor, and I think we've alleviated that now. There is, you know, there is no touching anymore. I've spun it, I've tapped it. There's, you know, it doesn't do what it was doing. So yeah, that's nice. So these things do, if you're going to upgrade with these steel wheels, see the tolerance is, it's a little better under there now. But if you are going to use one of these, you know, you're going to have to do some touch-up and refinement. And I'm sticking with it. You know, I like it. It may not have been a big issue, but it was a big enough issue that I wanted to resolve it. I believe we have very well. And it may not translate into some big, you know, ultra quiet spinning. It probably won't. Even without this one, you know, it still makes noise. So let's give it a listen. Yeah, maybe a little quieter. You know, it does make some noise, but, you know, when we spun this earlier, maybe it was a little noisier, a little, you know, touching. A controller, consider whether it has some of those features, those little jumpers for soft starts and speed limiters and stuff. They're helpful. And this one has a jumper, like I might have mentioned, between the 35 and 50 amps. And you don't want to let this thing get a hold of 50 amps. And these battery packs, this one I'm using has a continuous current rating, I believe. Its C rating is for up to a 60 amp draw at a time. And, you know, like I said, I'm drawing about 35 default, and sometimes I may even have it set on the cycle analyst to 30 amps. You know, that's a little safer, a little easier on your motor. It doesn't heat up the wiring, but I don't think 35 amps is a problem. So back to the battery pack and my talk about, you know, running two controllers. There is a newer BMC controller that does have a jumper setting. It's already pre-wired for the cycle analyst as well, and it defaults to either 30 or 40 amps. So, you know, there is a chance that I could get away with using two of those controllers to draw out of the one battery, but I'm probably not going to try that. I'll probably get two batteries, and I mention that because of the places I've already mentioned, like San Francisco e-bikes and Mr. Lion for various items that I've used and recommend. I'm not shilling for them in any sense. I just want to recommend sources and materials that are helpful if you're, you know, getting into this stuff. And I'll also mention high power cycles in the San Fernando Valley. They are enthusiasts, and one thing they have that is especially good is their battery packs. I'm using one right now, and it's a 48 volt battery pack, and it'll charge up to about 58 volts. So, you know, they're potent battery packs, and the design of them is better than anything out there. I'm convinced. They use the pouch battery cells that are flat. They're like a little pack, about, I don't know, 4 millimeters, and they just stack 16 of those 3.3 volt battery pouches on top. They're lithium, cobalt, nickel, the latest chemistry, and they're quite good. And but what makes them better than other battery packs, I find e-bike sellers using or promoting, is you know, those little round stand-up cylinder cells, and you know, they'll use about I don't know, 60 of them to get like a 48 volt battery pack, and they stand them up, and they have the connectors, you know, jumpering one to the other on this side, skip underneath. You know, and by the time you get done, you have a brick style of a battery, but there's a lot more parts, a lot more connectors, and you know, some of those connectors have weight bearing on them. Not so with these pouches. They have their connectors off to the side, and so all the electronics, all the battery management is off to the side. And you know, when you have those up and down forces, you don't want a battery bearing down and or underneath, and so they don't. So those pouch style battery cells are brilliant, and high-powered cycle uses them, and they are priced well, comparatively speaking, and I recommend them. I'm going to fit another one in my budget for that future project of energizing both of these. I'll have to drop this battery pack down a little bit, or battery box, make a little bit larger one, but not by much. I think I can turn two of them on the side and squeeze them in there, but just enlarging by another inch down below. So, and I recommend that you put your battery packs down below. Find the lowest center you can to keep that weight center down below. You don't want it high up top, and especially on a two-wheeled bike, they commonly put them on the racks, and you got to get another kickstand or the bike will fall over it at the hint of any movement. So yeah, try to keep them low, and you'll have I think a better ride up top. So yeah, okay, so we've talked controllers and clutches and gears, and we did the two things we wanted to do. We got in there, investigated, found what might have been a problem. Maybe it wasn't, I don't know, but I sure do like the ride now. It sure does have a more affirmative feel, and I haven't gotten that chatter yet at those rare times or intermittent times at very low speeds, on a bumpy surface. So yeah, no, I'm glad I went in there. So I'll splice all this into the existing footage, and I'll cut some of that footage. All new. This whole electric bicycle hub motors are still, in the beginning stages. They're starting to get pervasive, but people are trying new things, and I'm one of them. So that's what I'm going to do. The gal's coming for me. Hi.
We have a supersonic double bacon cheeseburger with mustard, ketchup, pickles, onions, well done.
That's what I want.
It's $5.52.
Okay, here's 10. Just give me, oh, it's $5.52. Just give me 4.
Okay.
What's your name? You don't have a name tag.
Mallory.
Mallory. Hi, Mallory.
Hi.
My name's Christian.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Have a good night.
Okay, let's roll on. My double bacon cheeseburger. So she earned a honk. I usually do the hand cranking when I get on a sidewalk like this, nice smooth one. Let them know that I'm a bike or a pedestrian. Exercise to. Yeah, this signal won't change unless you push the button, unless a car comes, and it's pretty responsive to the signal though. So there you have it. The conclusion of this little project that involved installing this upgraded single gear onto this 3-gear planetary drive or clutch mechanism on that electric hub motor, the BMC geared electric hub, as you can see in the background there. So yeah, did I really improve the overall function by adding this? Probably not. These held up extremely well, but it was, I think, good more for me to just go in and do this just to see what the wear was. Over those 2 years I've been riding this thing and putting a good deal of mileage on it. Some of you out there, some of you real enthusiasts who are using these geared hub motors on your motocross or other kinds of platforms, you may benefit from these. You might ride them harder, and this may actually provide some benefit. I don't know. But I was impressed just with the inherent system itself. These composite gears have apparently been improved to the point where they hold up quite well, and that may help you make a decision about whether to choose a geared hub motor. They're a little bit smaller in diameter, they're lighter in weight, they cost more, they have these moving parts which the direct drive systems don't. So those are all factors, but that most important one for me was that there's no drag on these. They just don't have that magnetic drag that the direct drive motors do. So I chose it for that as the first reason. The second reason is that it has that 5-to-1 gear ratio or reduction, which makes for quicker takeoffs, better torque, better hauling ability. So, if you don't want the fastest speeds, these are quite good for that, for torque. And I think they're a little bit more energy efficient, so you may get a little more mileage out of your battery pack from the geared motors. Oh gee, what else? So maybe over time I will conclude or discover that there might have been a problem in this one-way clutch mechanism. Maybe if I don't ever get that slight chatter when I re-engage the throttle at those slow speeds, over a bumpy section, if I don't hear it anymore, I might conclude that, yeah, maybe there was a problem in here. So, I don't know about that. So it may have been needless. Everything I've done today that you've seen may have been needless, probably was. But again, I know I'm repeating myself. It was good for me to get in there just to remove any notion that something might have been wrong in there. I kind of put it off for 6 months or more. That's about when I first started hearing once in a while that little chatter, and I thought, I'll get to it, and I finally did get to it, so I wasn't getting too paranoid about it, but I thought it was time, and I finally did, and no, it allayed any fear or concern now. And so, if I get that minor chatter, I'll just conclude that, that's just something it does. Maybe there is a little skippage in here once in a while on those rugged surfaces when you re-engage. Sometimes it has a little chatter until it engages perfectly. So that may just be how these are. You might once in a while get that. But yeah, overall a good experience. So yeah, feel free to dig into these things. There's other videos out there that show you a little bit more concisely or step by step all the finer details about how to repair these. This wasn't for me so much a how to do it, but more of a discovery process, and I discovered enough. Maybe you will too after watching this. But this, I don't think anybody's ever put out there on a video, so this will be a first. I know in the forums this gear has been talked about, produced by Mr. Lyon, L-Y-E-N, and when you buy them from him, if you buy them from him, they won't be drilled out like that. I drilled these out. It's probably not necessary at all, but that is an upgrade. It's one of the very few things you can do to upgrade this, in a simple fashion. I think guys are drilling out their housing and doing other things, but this is theoretically an upgrade in reliability, durability. So we'll see. Okay, thanks for watching. Maybe we'll get back to another project. Like I said, on this, you know, coming down the pike, you may see a video if you know what my channel is. It's New Jerusalem Times. You may see one there this summer with both of those rear wheels energized, and I think that'll be pretty interesting. Okay, thanks, gang.